Hello, long time no see. Um, I am going to do August and September's book reviews because at the end of August I was in the hospital with a kidney stone and it's hard to record videos from the hospital. So, I have like a crap ton of books. That might be an exaggeration, not a crap ton. But I have several books to review. So I guess we'll just get started. My first book, and this is going back to the beginning of April, so I'll do my best. The first book that I finished was The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. It was not scary. It is about a girl who gets lost in the woods. She goes on a hike with her mom and her brother. She gets lost in the woods and she has to try to survive out there. And she starts to imagine her favorite baseball player, Tom Gordon, being there with her to help her try to get through the situation. It was so short, especially for Steve. Super short. It went really quick. But it was actually really good. I gave it 4 stars. This is actually one of my previous students' favorite Stephen King books, so I was kind of excited to read it, and I get why she liked it so much. It's different for him. I guess there's scary parts to it, but it's not, I wouldn't call it horror by any means. So if you want to put your toes in the water of Stephen King, but you're not into the scary stuff, I would recommend this for sure. The next one I finished was called The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead, and I don't have a copy of it because it was one of the ones I listened to on my phone. It was recommended by my friend Liv. It is about a woman who, I don't want to give too much away. It's about a woman who was in kind of like I don't want to call it a cult. It wasn't enough people to be a cult, but it was kind of like an open relationship with this older man and a couple of other girls, and it turned bad. And the 2 girls that were with her ended up committing suicide, but she doesn't believe that it was suicide. So she goes back and tries to figure out what happened to them. It was good. There were a lot of twists that I didn't see coming. The ending was not what I expected. I gave it 4 stars. It was a solid, it wasn't horror, I wouldn't say. It was more of like a thriller. It had twists out the wazoo. It was really good. 4 stars. It was one I listened to, and I recommend it. The next one I finished is one that's been on my bookshelf for probably close to a decade. It's called Even Cowgirls Get the Blues by Tom Robbins. Written in, I want to say, the 70s. It is trippy as crap. 1976. Very counterculture-y, if that makes sense. It is about a girl named Sissy who has just really big thumbs, which sounds crazy. But having these big thumbs, she goes into hitchhiking. That's like her big hobby, and people are intrigued by her thumbs. And it takes her to different places, and she ends up falling in with this group of, they call themselves Cowgirls. It's just a bunch of girls, kind of feminist girls trying to take over this ranch. And she is kind of stuck in the middle of this whole thing. There's whooping cranes that come to mate at this ranch, and the whooping cranes go missing, and they're not mating there, and it was fun. It was a lot to follow just because it was kind of trippy. I gave it 4 stars because for what it was pretty good. It was entertaining. There was definitely some parts that were like funny. It is not what I would normally read, but I went through this phase where if a book was recommended as being like feminist literature, I had to get myself a copy. And I have to read the books I have, so that's how we got here to Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. It's for a very niche audience, I would say. There's parts of it that are kind of like magical realism. There's parts of it that are just like totally out there. But it's fun. It was fun. The next one I finished was for book club in September. So last month's book club. It is called Sister Maiden Monster by Lucy A. Snyder. It follows 3 women during the onset of a new virus. So it's written post-COVID, and it's told from the perspective of being post-COVID, but you can't really tell how post-COVID it is, so you're not sure how long ago COVID was a thing. But they are 3 different... It starts out as 3 different, like, totally separate characters, and then over the course of the book they come together. One of them is named Erin. She gets the virus, comes down with the virus, and discovers while she's in the hospital that she's a type 3, so there are different types of viruses, and depending on the different type of virus is what you are now going to eat, and hers happens to end up being brains. So it kind of has like a zombie-ish undercurrent until it goes just totally Lovecraft. And you have like flying monsters, and there was some like body horror, I guess, which is not usually my thing, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't super... I don't want to say it wasn't gruesome. There were a couple parts where it was pretty gruesome. But like it was fun. Savannah is the second section's character. She is like a BDSM dominatrix type lady, and she ends up like getting in with the new overlords, so she's kind of like a bounty hunter, I guess, of sorts for the new eldritch overlords, and she starts doing their bidding for them. And then Mariva, who, if there's going to be a sequel, I think it's going to follow Mariva, ends up being like a carrier for the offspring of these overlords. It was good. It was fun. It was... just the cover is like in your face. It was good. It was fun. I've said that from almost all of them, but for some reason, August and September were just kind of just fun. Definitely there were moments that were scary, more so just gory, but it was a good read. So that was Sister Maiden Monster, and I gave it 4 stars. I was given a lot of 4 stars. I didn't want to... I don't know. I'm very sparing with my 5-star reviews. The next one was one I had been reading for a while. It's called The Intellectual Devotional, specifically the modern culture version. It is put together by David S. Kidder and Noah D. Oppenheim. And it is written like a devotional. So every day there's a different entry. They fall under the categories of music, pop culture, literature, personalities, ideas, sports. That might be it. So there were just a bunch of different little tidbits. So if you're into random knowledge like I am, I like to know a little bit about everything. This would be a fun one. I read it at night before bed. Took me about a year, like it's supposed to. I gave it 4 stars. It is a little dated. I don't know if they have... I got this one for on super sale at Barnes & Noble. I don't know if they have more up-to-date ones, but it was a little bit dated, but it was still cool. For some reason, it was kind of freaky. Like, every time I read something, it seemed like it came up, like, the next day. I feel like there's a philosophical term for that, where it's like just because you read it, you suddenly think about it. But I know a little about a lot of things, and I like that. It makes for interesting conversations. The next one I finished was Life Before Man by Margaret Atwood. It was actually, I've been struggling with Maggie. I don't know what's short for Margaret, but I've been struggling with her for a while. Sometimes the stories feel like they're too complicated for me. Maybe I'm not smart enough. This one was actually a good read, though. It was about, it kind of was about three people. So there was Elizabeth, and she is married to Nate, but they kind of have this like open relationship thing. So she was in a relationship with this other guy, and he ends up committing suicide, and she has to kind of like figure out, like, does she want to stay with Nate, or is it worth it? They have 2 kids, so you have to weigh that. And he then decides that he's going to also have an affair of his own. I don't know if he just felt left out or what, but he starts having an affair with a woman that Elizabeth works with. Lasha is, I think, how you say her name. It's spelled Lesje, but I think it's pronounced Lasha. And it's just how it all plays out, and I rooted for Lasha because I felt like I could relate to her a lot, but then it went back and forth with Nate and Elizabeth. I just like, when I would read a chapter from one of their perspectives, I would hate the other one, and then I would read a chapter from their perspective, and I don't know. It was kind of like Gone Girl, but without the disappearance part. You could just tell that they were all playing each other, and it was, none of them were happy, and it all got worse and worse for all of them, which is it's not happy, but it was a good story. And Elizabeth and Lasha work in a museum. And Lasha is really interested in dinosaurs. So the whole book is kind of talking about like how things go extinct, whether it's a species or like your love for someone. So it kind of tied it all in together with that. It was good. I liked it. I gave that one 4 stars as well. The next one I finished was another life in the title, Life After Life, by Kate Atkinson. And it was, I don't remember when I bought this, but it was a really cool concept. So the idea is that this woman in the book, her name's Ursula, she died at birth, and then as soon as she died at birth, she started over. So it was like every time she died, she would go back and start over and try to, live and make it right again. So she's born in like 1911 or something. So she dies of different things. She dies of the Spanish flu or whatever. And it's just interesting to see her. I think my microphone quit. I don't know, but I've been told. Let's see. Did it? Hello? Okay, it looks like it's working. If not, we'll just do it all over again. Okay. Anyways, like I was saying, she goes back and she relives whatever space of time it was that had passed since she died. So the book starts super strong. It starts in 1933 something, and she kills Hitler. So like I was like excited. Like I thought maybe it was going to be like, how is the world going to be different if there's no Hitler? And I think the first half was really good, and then it just drug on for too long, and there wasn't enough of that kind of stuff that I just got I got bored, I think. I gave it 3 stars still because the first half was really good. But I had higher expectations for this one. It was a really cool concept that I think kind of dropped the ball. So, it's also a little bit longer than I think it needed to be. She maybe died a few more times than was necessary, but it was decent. 3 stars. The next one I finished was called Kisses from Katie. And it's another one that I listened to on my phone. It was written by Katie Davis Majors. At the time, I think it was just Katie Davis. It's about this woman in Uganda who, well, she's not in Uganda, sorry. Let me back up for a second. She's in 2008, 19 years old, and she feels a calling to go to Uganda as kind of like a missionary trip. And she ends up starting this organization where she has like a school set up for these kids, and she ends up adopting like 14 kids while she's there at this. She's 19, I mean, over the course of a couple years, but she ends up raising these kids, and it's all about how, you know, Jesus called her to do this and be this person to help these kids. And normally it's not my cup of tea, but it was actually a really cool story. I gave it 4 stars. It was recommended by my friend Marie, and like I said, it is not something that I would have picked out on my own. I was dreading it because I do not enjoy those types of books, but just the amount of hope she has and the fact that she is able to do this just like with the help of donors and the people she met in Uganda and the way she lived her life there was just really cool. So nonfiction memoir, and it was pretty inspirational. Kind of, you know, the fact that you don't have to be changing the entire world to be changing the world, if that makes sense. You know, changing a little bit at a time still counts. You're still doing something by affecting like a few lives, even though sometimes it feels like we're not doing anything, if that makes sense. The last one I read was actually for school. So I'm teaching contemporary lit, and this year, well, yeah, we didn't do it last year. This year we're doing dystopian. We just finished a dystopian unit, and I had them do it as a lit circle, so they could choose from 5 books, and there were a couple that I hadn't read yet, so I read with one other kid that was in the class, and the book we picked was Unwind by Neal Schusterman. It was good. Okay, so the concept is, and you know, dystopians, I wouldn't say it's scary, it's sci-fi, when a utopia goes wrong. And after we read it, the kids had to develop a utopia that went wrong, and it was fun to have them combine their books and watch how it turned out. But so Unwind, the concept is that we had a second civil war, and it was over reproductive rights this time. And the two sides could not come to an agreement about whether or not abortion should be legal. So they come to a what do you call that? They make a, you know, or the two sides, and they decide that they are going to, from the ages of 13 to 18, allow parents to decide to unwind their children. So what that means is like, if your kid turns 13 and they're like a problem child, you have from the ages of 13 to 18 to get rid of them. So the way they get around it, they're not killing them, they are unraveling their body parts. So they get sent to an unwind facility where their pieces are taken and given to people who need them. So like organ donor situation, but while they're still alive. And so it brings up all these questions of like, when does a soul form? What happens to your soul if all your body parts are taken and put in different places? Where, at what point do you develop the soul? Are you born with it? One kid thinks it happens as soon as someone loves you. One kid thinks it happens as soon as you're born. Another thinks it's as soon as you're conceived. Like things that we argue about all the time. So it was really good. I gave it 5 stars. It was great. It's technically young adult, which is usually not my cup of tea. I don't usually super enjoy young adult, like Hunger Games, those kinds of books, because I think they're kind of predictable and they all follow the same logic and whatever. But this one was really good. There were parts that were like creepy. You watched an unwind happen. You didn't watch. You read a unwind happen, and it was just like messed up. It was good. I would recommend it. It's definitely makes you think. The kid who was reading it with me, he was reading faster than I was, and he was like, "Did you get this part?" And I'm like, "Don't spoil anything for me," because it was like one where it was hard to like put it down. So yeah, those were the books I read over the course of August and September. I'm sorry I was away for so long. I hope to not have that happen again and be back here at the end of October. I am listening to Amazon's creature feature collection that they released with books, novellas, short stories by 5 or 6 big authors in horror. So far I've gotten through Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son. I've gotten through his. Grady Hendrix, if you know some horror stuff. I'm currently on, I believe, Josh Mallerman's installment, and they're good. And I'm going to review those at the end of the month, each separately, because I think they each deserve their own mention. So this month I'm strictly doing scary. So if you have anything scary that you think I should need to put on my list ASAP, let me know, and I will see you next month. Bye.